I'm writing this to get things off my chest, but I also hope it can help others. My name is Mark, and I'm 32 years old. I've been married to Rachel for the past 6 years, and I thought we had a solid relationship. We met in college, bonded over late-night study sessions, and had built what I believed was a loving partnership. But recently, everything changed. It started with little things. Rachel became distant, her usual warmth turned cold, and I felt like I was talking to a wall most of the time. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just busy with work. She's a marketing executive and the company had been undergoing some restructuring. I tried to be understanding, but every time I reached out, it felt like she had a wall up. She'd often say she was too tired after long work days or she needed to unwind. Then there were the late nights. Rachel began coming home later than usual, claiming she was at happy hour with coworkers. The first time or two, I didn't think much of it, but soon it became a pattern. I noticed she was more secretive with her phone. She'd step out to take calls and was quick to hide her screen when I walked into the room. The unease was growing, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. After all, I trusted her, right? However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One day, I was cleaning out our home office, and I stumbled across a receipt dated a couple of weeks earlier from a restaurant I knew we'd never been to. It was for two, and the total was significantly higher than what I would spend on dinner. That hit me like a ton of bricks. My instincts kicked in, and I decided to dig a bit deeper. I started paying more attention to Rachel's behavior, the way she laughed at her phone, the little smirks that slipped through when she thought I wasn't looking. And then it happened. I was out running an errand and came home early, only to find Rachel in the living room, engaging in a conversation that felt all too intimate. I overheard her talking about seeing someone who makes her feel alive again. My heart sank. Who was this someone? The moment she hung up, I confronted her. Rachel's face went pale and I knew I had her. I demanded to know who she was talking about, and at first she tried to deny everything. She claimed it was just a friend from work, someone she shared ideas with to get through the long hours. But I could see through the lies, the way her eyes darted around, her stammering, and that guilty flush creeping up her neck. Finally, when I pushed her harder, the truth spilled out like poison. She admitted to having an affair with someone I never expected, Kyle, my childhood bully. The name struck me like a punch to the gut. Kyle had made my life hell back in school. He was a constant reminder of insecurity, and now he was in my home, in my wife's bed. The betrayal hit me like an avalanche, burying me in anger and humiliation. I was furious, and as much as I wanted to scream at her, I realized I needed to keep my cool. Rachel tried to play the victim, saying that she had felt neglected and alone, that our marriage had become a routine. But I knew better. Her excuses felt like daggers each, one twisting deeper into my gut. As I processed everything, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, rage, sadness, and an overwhelming desire for revenge. I could have walked away, but that didn't sit well with me. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, and I knew just how to make that happen. I had to turn my thoughts into action, but how? I started to plan my next moves carefully, the first step in a game I never wanted to play. The decisions I made would ensure they both faced the consequences of their actions, and I would not rest until Rachel regretted her choice. So there I was, a man at a crossroads, feeling betrayed and angry. I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a long and dark road ahead, one that would change everything I thought I knew about love and forgiveness. If you've been through something similar, you know the feeling of wanting to fight back. But how far is too far? And what does revenge really do to a person? I didn't have those answers yet, but I was about to find out. After confronting Rachel, I spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the conversation over and over in my head. Her excuses echoed in my ears, and I could feel the anger bubbling inside me like molten lava ready to erupt. I was furious with her, but even more so with Kyle. This was a guy who had tormented me for years, and now he was creeping into my life again, but this time in the most intimate way possible. The thought of him with Rachel made my blood boil. The next day, I took a personal day off work. I needed time to think, to strategize. I knew I had to take a step back from the immediate emotional turmoil and formulate a plan. I needed to expose Kyle for who he really was, and I had just the ammunition to do it. For years, Kyle had been living under the radar, but I had a few connections from our school days. I remembered some of the shady things he'd gotten involved in: drugs, petty theft, and even some whispers about something bigger. I had never participated in those circles, but I was certain I could dig up some dirt if I put my mind to it. I pulled out my laptop and started looking through old social media posts. It was time to dust off my investigative skills. As I scrolled through Kyle's profile, I noticed he was living a seemingly normal life. His posts were filled with pictures of him and Rachel, laughing, with captions that made it look like they were in love. I felt a surge of betrayal as I read the comments from friends, congratulating them on their relationship. Little did they know the truth. I remembered a few classmates who had stayed in the area after school. They might know something. I reached out to a couple of them, asking casually about Kyle. It didn't take long before I got a response that made my heart race. One friend mentioned a shady deal Kyle was involved in, something about a drug bust that had gone unnoticed. This was the break I needed. I went to the local library to do some research. I found old articles about arrests in our hometown and began piecing together a timeline of Kyle's past. There were mentions of him being in and out of trouble, but it seemed like he had managed to keep his record clean, enough to avoid serious consequences. I noted down the details and decided to follow up with the local police department. Maybe they could help me out, or at the very least, advise me on how to proceed. As I gathered more information, a mix of excitement and nerves coursed through me. I had a plan brewing, but I needed to be careful. I didn't want Rachel to suspect anything just yet. I played the role of the dutiful husband, acting as if everything was fine while I was plotting. I wanted her to think that her betrayal hadn't affected me, that I was still the same Mark she'd been married to. Later that week, I had a call with one of the officers I'd spoken to at the department. He confirmed that there was an ongoing investigation related to Kyle, but they needed more evidence to proceed. That was my opening. I decided to gather whatever information I could to help expedite the process. This was when I realized just how deep the betrayal cut. Rachel had not only chosen Kyle over me, but she had also put herself in a position where I could destroy the man who had tormented me for years. It was poetic in a way. I started to imagine how satisfying it would be to watch Kyle's world come crashing down. He had humiliated me, and now I had the chance to make him pay. As I continued to gather evidence, I noticed something else. Rachel was becoming more anxious. She started pestering me about being distant and spending too much time on my phone. I laughed it off, saying I was just trying to get ahead on some work. The truth was, I had become a master at hiding my intentions. One night, Rachel came home late again. This time she reeked of cheap perfume, and I knew it wasn't the same scent she used. I confronted her, but she shrugged it off, claiming it was from a coworker. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she was getting better at covering it up. I decided I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of knowing I was on to her. The days turned into weeks as I collected my evidence, building a case against Kyle. I began to feel more confident in my plan. I could see the finish line ahead, the moment when I would reveal Kyle's dark past to Rachel. I wanted her to see him for who he really was, a coward hiding behind a facade. But soon, I realized that revenge, while sweet in theory, would likely come at a cost. The emotional toll was weighing heavily on me. Each step closer to my goal had me questioning whether this path would bring me the closure I sought. Would it make me feel better to watch her suffer, or would it only deepen my own pain? That question lingered as I continued to navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal. I was ready to confront the shadows of my past, but I was also confronting the reality of my own heart. The line between revenge and healing had begun to blur, and I had to decide if I was truly prepared for what lay ahead. Would this act of revenge be my liberation, or would it entrap me further in a web of bitterness? Only time would tell. As I prepared for the next step in my plan, I felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on me. The emotional roller coaster was dizzying. One moment I felt empowered, the next I wrestled with doubt. I found myself caught between the satisfaction of revenge and the fear that I was losing myself in the process. But there was no turning back now. I needed to see it through. I decided it was time to confront Kyle. I wanted to see the look on his face when I revealed that I knew about his past. I tracked him down to a local bar where I knew he hung out with his so-called friends. The place was dimly lit, filled with the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. I walked in, my heart racing, but my determination steeled my nerves. There he was, sitting in a corner booth with a couple of guys, laughing too loudly over something that was probably insignificant. I felt an odd thrill watching him. He looked so comfortable, so at ease, while I was seething with anger. I approached his table, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Kyle," I said, forcing a smile. "Got a minute?" He looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to recognition, followed by a smirk. "Mark," he said, feigning friendliness. "Long time no see, what's up?" I leaned in closer, lowering my voice. "We need to talk. I know about your little affair with Rachel, and I know all about your past, your little run-ins with the law." His smile faltered, and I could see the flicker of panic in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, trying to regain his composure. "I know about the drugs, the thefts. I know you've managed to keep it quiet, but your history is about to catch up with you." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "You've made a mistake, Kyle. You think you can just waltz back into my life and take my wife. We both know you're not the man you pretend to be." For a brief moment, I reveled in the fear that flashed across his face. It was a rush. I felt powerful, but then reality set in. I knew that this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about control, reclaiming the narrative of my life that he had stolen from me as a child. Kyle fumbled for words, feigning ignorance. "You're wrong, man. Rachel and I are just friends. You can't believe everything you hear. Is that why you're so eager to hide your past?" I shot back. "You're a coward, Kyle. I've seen how you treat people who are weaker than you. Don't think I won't expose you if you don't back off." He glanced around nervously, knowing that we were in a public space and that making a scene could draw unwanted attention. "You wouldn't dare," he said, trying to sound tough, but I could see the cracks beginning to form in his facade. "I already have," I retorted. "I've already spoken to some people about you. If you think this is just going to go away, you're mistaken." The tension was palpable, and I could feel the eyes of the other patrons on us. Kyle's bravado began to fade, replaced by the realization that I was serious. I turned to leave, but not before throwing one last parting shot. "You better think long and hard about the choices you're making. Rachel deserves better than a loser like you. And if you don't step away from her, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." I walked out of the bar feeling exhilarated but also conflicted. I had confronted my bully, the man who had once tormented me, and now I was the one holding the power. But as I drove home, I started to wonder if this was enough. Rachel was still in the dark about my plans, and I needed to decide how and when I would reveal everything. Would I show her the dirt I had on Kyle first, or should I confront her directly about her deceit? The anticipation was gnawing at me. When I got home, Rachel was sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone. I felt a surge of anger at the sight of her, but I pushed it down. I had to keep my cool. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. She looked up, a small smile creeping onto her face. "Hey, how was your day off?" "Pretty productive," I replied, my mind racing with thoughts of my confrontation. "What about you? Did you have a good day at work?" She nodded, but I could tell there was a hint of tension in her demeanor. "Just the usual, meetings, emails, you know how it is." I watched her closely, searching for signs of guilt. Every time she shifted in her seat or looked away, I felt my heart race. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but I knew I had to play this right. "Rachel, can we talk?" I said, my tone shifting to something more serious. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, suddenly alert. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. "I need to know the truth. Are you seeing Kyle?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw her mask slip. "What? No, Mark, how could you even think that?" I could feel my anger boiling over. "Don't lie to me, Rachel. I know about the affair. I confronted him today." Her face paled, and I could see the panic setting in. "What do you mean you confronted him? You have no right." "I have every right," I shot back. "You betrayed me. You think it's okay to just throw our marriage away for him. I know who he really is, Rachel. I know what he's done." Her expression shifted from shock to defiance. You don't know anything. You don't understand what I've been going through. I felt so alone. Alone? I echoed, incredulous. You think I haven't been here for you? You've pushed me away. You made a choice, and it wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. Tears welled in her eyes, but I was past the point of feeling sympathy. She had made her bed, and now I was going to make sure she lay in it. Mark, please, let's talk about this, she begged, her voice trembling. I shook my head, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the chance to expose the truth and watch her face the consequences of her actions. But as I looked into her eyes, I was reminded of the love we once shared, and it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Rachel, you need to face the reality of what you've done. I'm not saying this to hurt you, but you need to understand how serious this is. I turned away, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. This was becoming messy. I had aimed for revenge, but in the process, I was losing sight of the person I had once loved. I needed to think carefully about how to proceed. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was on a path that would forever change the course of our lives. Would I find closure through revenge, or would it only deepen the wounds that had already been inflicted? I had to figure that out, and soon. The confrontation with Rachel left me feeling drained and conflicted. I had set out with a clear goal of revenge, yet here I was, grappling with the remnants of love and the echoes of our shared life. As I lay in bed that night, I replayed the scene in my mind. Her tears, the tremor in her voice, the raw pain of betrayal, it all weighed heavily on me. I couldn't deny that I enjoyed seeing her discomfort. She deserved to feel the impact of her choices. Yet the love I once had for her flickered like a dying ember, making me question my own motives. I spent the next few days in a state of emotional limbo. My interactions with Rachel became increasingly strained. I went through the motions of daily life, work, chores, even small talk, but inside I was a storm. I was resolute in my plan to expose Kyle, but I found myself wondering if revealing the truth would truly bring me the satisfaction I sought. Would it heal the wounds, or would it twist the knife further into our already fragile relationship? Rachel continued to act as if nothing was wrong, but I could see through her facade. The guilt hung over her like a dark cloud. I started to notice small changes in her behavior. She was overly accommodating, bringing me my favorite snacks or trying to initiate conversations about our future. It felt disingenuous, like she was trying to buy her way back into my good graces. One night, I came home from work to find her waiting for me, a nervous energy radiating off her. She had prepared dinner, lit candles, and put on soft music. It all felt too orchestrated. I wanted to do something special, she said, forcing a smile. I miss us, Mark. I felt a wave of bitterness bubble up inside me. You miss us, or do you just miss the security of our life together? Her expression faltered for a moment, then hardened. You don't have to be cruel. I'm trying to make things right, I scoffed. What does that even mean? Apologizing and pretending nothing happened. You think I can just forget about your betrayal? She opened her mouth to respond, but I could see the realization dawn on her. She had underestimated the depth of my hurt and the weight of my anger. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. I love you, Mark. Her words were like a punch to the gut. I knew she was desperate, but did she really understand the gravity of what she had done? You don't get to throw around "I love you" like it makes everything better. Love doesn't justify cheating. Rachel's shoulders slumped, and I could see the fight drain out of her. Then what do you want me to say? What can I do to prove to you that I'm sorry? I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. You can start by being honest with yourself and with me. I want you to understand the consequences of your choices, not just for you, but for both of us. She nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. I know I hurt you. I didn't expect to fall for him. It just happened. Just happened, I echoed, incredulous. You don't just fall into an affair. You made a conscious choice to betray me over and over. Our conversation spiraled into a back and forth, each of us hurling our emotions at each other like weapons. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. But as we argued, I also felt a pang of pity for her. She was trapped in her own web of lies, struggling to find a way out. That night, after Rachel went to bed, I sat awake in the living room, staring at the walls we had created together. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I reached the name of the officer I had spoken to. Maybe it was time to tip them off about Kyle. I needed to make my move before Rachel had a chance to manipulate the situation further. I called the police department and asked to speak to Officer Thompson. When I finally got him on the line, I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "I have some information that could help your investigation into Kyle Jennings," I said, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. "Go on," he replied, sounding intrigued. I launched into the details I had gathered: his past, the drug-related incidents, and the whispers of other illegal activities. It felt good to finally share the burden I had been carrying. I could feel the weight of my plan solidifying, the pieces coming together. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mark," Officer Thompson said. "We'll look into it. If you have any more information, please don't hesitate to reach out." I hung up feeling a rush of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. I still had to face Rachel, and I knew the confrontation would only get uglier. I had made my decision: I would expose Kyle. But I also had to prepare myself for the fallout. Would Rachel turn on me? Would she try to defend him? As much as I wanted to believe that I was in control, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on shaky ground. The following morning, I woke up early, the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Rachel had already left for work, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I had some time to collect my thoughts before the inevitable confrontation. I knew I couldn't let her manipulate the narrative or play the victim any longer. Around midday, I received a text from Rachel asking if we could talk after work. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. What could she possibly say that would change anything? But I agreed, knowing that the conversation was going to happen sooner or later. When she got home that evening, there was something different about her. She looked conflicted, her face pale, and her hands shook slightly as she set down her bag. "Mark," she started, her voice wavering, "I need to be honest with you." I felt my heart race. "About what?" I replied, bracing myself for whatever she was about to say. "I saw Kyle today," she confessed, looking down at her feet. "I confronted him. I told him it was over." I felt a mix of anger and surprise. "You saw him? After everything, you think that's going to change anything?" "I had to," she said, her voice rising defensively. "I needed closure. I wanted him to know that I was done." "Closure?" I laughed bitterly. "You think that's enough? You think you can just walk away from this without consequences?" Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the guilt etched across her face. "I'm trying to make things right, Mark. I'm trying to fix this." I took a step closer, my anger boiling over. "Fixing things doesn't mean running back to the source of your betrayal. It means facing the consequences of your actions. It means being honest with yourself and me." Rachel shook her head, desperation in her eyes. "I can't lose you, Mark. I'll do anything." "You've already lost me," I whispered, feeling the finality of those words weigh heavily on my heart. The air between us was thick with tension. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and one wrong move could send everything crashing down. I had to decide how to navigate this moment, whether to continue with my plan or give her a chance to redeem herself. But deep inside, I knew I had already made my choice. I couldn't back down now. The path to revenge was set, and I was going to see it through. The days that followed my confrontation with Rachel felt like an emotional whirlwind. I had set the wheels of revenge in motion, yet I was still grappling with the fallout of my choices. Rachel was trying hard to bridge the gap between us, but I could see the desperation in her eyes, a mixture of fear and regret that only deepened my resolve. I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing I had taken control of the situation, but it was also tinged with a nagging guilt. The thought of exposing Kyle gave me a rush, but at the same time, I was aware that it wasn't just Kyle who would suffer. It was Rachel too. I had to remind myself that she had made her choices, and I was merely holding her accountable for them. I continued to gather evidence against Kyle, digging deeper into his past. I contacted a few more acquaintances from high school who might have insight into his shady dealings. It was during one of these conversations that I learned something that sent a chill down my spine. Kyle had been involved in a recent incident, a drug deal that had gone wrong. Several people had been arrested, but Kyle had slipped through the cracks yet again. This was the leverage I needed. I made my way to the police station again, this time feeling a sense of urgency. I spoke with Officer Thompson, relaying the information I had gathered. "If you act now, you might catch him before he disappears again," I urged. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Mark," he said, scribbling notes. "We'll look into it. I appreciate your help." As I left the station, a wave of exhilaration washed over me. This was it. I was finally taking control of the narrative, pushing back against the years of torment Kyle had inflicted on me. I could feel the tide turning in my favor, but the reality of what I was doing lingered in the back of my mind like an unwanted guest. That evening, Rachel approached me again after dinner. She had been trying to be more present, but I could tell that the weight of her guilt was heavy on her. "I want to talk." "About what happened?" she said, her eyes searching mine for answers. "About what?" I asked, feigning indifference, but my heart raced as I prepared for her to plead her case once again. "About Kyle," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, but I'm really trying to make this work. I need you to understand how sorry I am." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also felt the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Rachel. You've put us both in a terrible situation." "Please," she pressed, tears gathering in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you. I love you. I was foolish, but that doesn't mean I don't care about our life together." I took a deep breath, wrestling with my own emotions. "What do you want me to say? You've made your bed and now you have to lie in it." She stepped closer, the desperation in her voice rising. "I can prove I'm committed. We can go to couples therapy. I'll do anything to fix this." I shook my head, feeling the anger boiling over. "You think therapy will erase the pain? You think talking about it will just make everything okay? You've broken my trust, Rachel. I don't know if I can ever get past this." "Please, Mark, you're my husband. We can work through this together," she begged, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, feeling a surge of frustration. "I don't think you understand the gravity of what you've done. You've betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I can't just pretend it didn't happen." She stepped back, the hurt in her eyes evident. "What do you want me to do? Just give up on us?" I paused, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "You've already given up on us, Rachel. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." Just then, a flood of emotions washed over me. I stood my ground, but deep down I felt a pang of sadness. I had fought so hard to keep our marriage together, but now it felt like a house of cards, teetering on the edge of collapse. Her resolve crumbled as tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lost, and I thought I could find myself with him, but I realize now that it was a mistake." "Do you really feel that way?" I asked, my voice quieter. "Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear?" She looked at me, vulnerability etched on her face. "I'm saying this because I know I messed up. I was selfish, and I regret every moment of it. I want to make things right." I turned away, my heart heavy with indecision. I felt the pull of the past and the memories we had shared, but I also felt the need for justice. I took a moment to collect my thoughts before finally speaking. "You need to understand that you can't just undo what's been done. There are consequences for your actions, and I'm prepared to see this through." Rachel stepped back, the realization sinking in. "What do you mean?" "I've been gathering evidence about Kyle," I confessed, my voice steady. "I know about his criminal past, and I've spoken to the police." Her eyes widened in shock. "What you did, Mark, you can't do that." "Why not?" I challenged. "He's the one who invaded our lives. He's the reason for this mess. I want him to face the consequences of his actions just like you should." "Please don't. It'll only make things worse," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. "Worse for who, Rachel?" I shot back. "You think I'm doing this for me? I want you both to feel the repercussions of your choices. You thought you could have your cake and eat it too, but that's not how the world works." The room was thick with tension as Rachel's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're being vindictive. You're no better than him." "Maybe I am," I snapped, the anger consuming me. "You think I'm doing this out of spite? I'm doing this for my own sanity. I need to reclaim my life, and if that means exposing Kyle for who he really is, then so be it." Rachel turned away, her shoulders shaking as she fought back tears. "You're making a mistake, Mark. This won't fix anything." "Maybe not, but it will give me a sense of closure," I replied, the conviction in my voice unwavering. With that, I walked away, leaving Rachel standing there, uncertain and afraid. I felt a mix of triumph and sorrow. I was standing at a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. I knew that once I set this plan into motion, there would be no turning back. I was prepared to face the consequences, no matter how painful. The following day, I received a call from Officer Thompson. "We're ready to move on the information you provided about Kyle," he said. "Are you still willing to testify if necessary?" I felt a rush of adrenaline. "Absolutely," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. "I want to see him brought to justice." "Good, we'll keep you updated on the situation. And thank you for your help," he said, and I hung up feeling both exhilarated and anxious. That evening, I came home to find Rachel waiting for me, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady. "About what?" I asked, my guard up. "About Kyle and what you're planning to do," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "I won't let you destroy him, and I won't let you destroy us in the process." The tension in the room was palpable, and I could feel the weight of her words hanging over us like a storm cloud. It was time for one final confrontation, one last chance to decide what our future would look like. I was ready to fight for my truth, but I also had to consider the cost of that fight. Would it be worth it in the end? Rachel's words hung heavy in the air, and I could see the determination in her eyes. She was resolute, unwavering in her stance. "I won't let you ruin Kyle's life, Mark. I won't let you turn this into an all-out war," she said, her voice steady but laced with desperation. I could feel the anger rising within me, but I also sensed something else. Fear. Rachel was scared, not just for Kyle, but for what my actions might mean for us. I had to decide whether to press forward with the plan I had set into motion or to consider the possibility of forgiveness. "Rachel, this isn't just about Kyle anymore. This is about what he represents, the pain of my past, the humiliation. I can't just stand by and let him get away with it again," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "But it's also about us." Rachel shot back, her eyes fierce. "You're not just fighting Kyle, you're fighting me too. You can't keep using this anger as a weapon against everyone who hurt you. I'm trying to move forward, but I need you to do the same." I shook my head. "You don't understand. This isn't just about anger. It's about justice. It's about accountability. I've spent my whole life feeling powerless, and now I have a chance to reclaim that power. I won't let it slip away. By destroying someone else," she argued, her voice rising in frustration. "You think that's going to make you feel better? You'll just become the monster you're trying to fight against. Revenge doesn't heal wounds, it only deepens them." Her words struck a chord, forcing me to reconsider my motivations. Yes, I wanted justice, but was I willing to sacrifice my own integrity and the possibility of reconciliation with Rachel in the process? I took a deep breath, trying to temper my emotions as I thought about what I truly wanted. "I don't want to be that person, Rachel," I confessed, my voice softer. "But every time I think about what you did, what he did, it feels like a knife twisting deeper. I'm scared of losing you, but I'm equally terrified of what this is doing to me." Rachel stepped closer, her expression shifting from anger to compassion. "I know you're hurt, we both are, but we can't keep punishing each other. If you go through with this, you might win the battle, but you'll lose the war for us. I can't let you do that." I saw the sincerity in her eyes, and for the first time since this whole mess began, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps revenge wouldn't bring the closure I craved, but would only push us further apart. I had to weigh the value of our marriage against the desire for retribution. "Maybe I need to think about this differently," I said slowly, feeling the tension begin to ease. "What if instead of revenge, I focus on healing for both of us?" Rachel's eyes brightened as she grasped my hands. "Yes, let's work on rebuilding trust. We can go to therapy, talk through this together. I want to make things right, and I need you to want that too." I hesitated, wrestling with my conflicting emotions. "But what about Kyle? He needs to pay for what he's done." "He will, but not through you," she insisted. "Let the system handle him. You can't shoulder this burden alone. Let it go, Mark, for us." I took a deep breath, weighing her words. I could feel the anger and hurt beginning to thaw, replaced by the longing for the life we once had. "Okay," I said finally, my resolve softening. "Let's focus on us, but I want to make sure that he faces the consequences of his actions. I can't let him slip through the cracks again." Rachel nodded, relief flooding her features. "We'll make sure he gets what he deserves, but we'll do it together, okay? We'll find a way to navigate this without destroying ourselves in the process." In that moment, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was a difficult decision, but for the first time, I saw a path forward that did involve dragging others down in the pursuit of my own justice. I finally understood that love, while fragile, was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the fight meant letting go of the past. Over the next few weeks, we started attending couples therapy. It wasn't easy. We had to confront painful truths and face the fallout from Rachel's betrayal. But with each session, I could feel the walls slowly crumbling. We began to communicate openly, sharing our fears and insecurities, learning to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. As for Kyle, he would eventually face the consequences of his actions, though not through me. I made sure to report the information I had gathered to Officer Thompson, who assured me that they would take it from there. I wanted to see him brought to justice, but I also wanted to distance myself from the anger that had consumed me. In time, Rachel and I found a new rhythm, forging a deeper connection as we navigated the storm together. The journey to rebuilding our marriage was still fraught with challenges, but I was determined to face them hand in hand with the woman I loved. Through this ordeal, I learned that the bonds we forge in love can be stronger than the betrayals we face. I had faced my demons, stood up to my past, and ultimately chose a path of healing over revenge. And while the scars of betrayal would always remain, I knew that our love was worth the fight. In the end, I discovered that true strength lies not in seeking revenge but in the courage to forgive and move forward together. I had reclaimed my life, not through vengeance, but by choosing to embrace the future with hope, healing, and an unwavering commitment to love.